Last week, we brought you 6 trade for and 2 trade away candidates.
That's right.
And we're doing that again this week, heading into week 3. Here are 6 players that we're trading for, 2 players that we're trading away in fantasy football. Now, I understand some things might not have worked out for you just yet in fantasy football, but I want to throw you a friendly reminder. I want to throw you a bone right now, not to freak out, because let's look at last year. When week 2 had finished last year, Josh Allen was a quarterback 18. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback 15. Najee Harris was the RB 22. JT, the RB 24. Leonard Fournette, the RB 30. Connor, the RB 53. Diggs, the wide receiver 24. Jefferson, the 26. Adams, the 27. Waddle, the 39. And Mark Andrews was the tight end 17. Why do I tell you all of this? Because we're going to tell you right now to trade for certain players and trade them away. And what we want you to keep in mind is that your perspective should not be looking only through the lens of 2 weeks. The rest of the NFL season will look completely different. Certain things will change. Players who aren't performing will perform. Players who are performing won't perform. But just want to make sure I give that perspective out there to everyone before we give these takes. I think it's going to be a great video.
Yep.
I'll go first with my first trade for, and then I'll pass it to you. Trade for Deebo Samuel.
Give it to Deebo.
Trade for Deebo Samuel. There is a real buy low opportunity here. You drafted Deebo as the wide receiver 7 according to ADP this year. And he is currently, through 2 weeks, the wide receiver 27. Let's bring in a little bit of context as to why Deebo has been relatively average so far this year. In week 1, we talked about it last week, but San Francisco was playing literally in a monsoon. Literally in a monsoon. Did you watch the game? Someone commented that. Did you watch the game? They were playing in a monsoon. It was impossible for an offense to be successful.
Right.
He was wide receiver 31 on that week, but he still had 15 touches. All right. Now week 2 comes around. They play the Seahawks. Trey Lance goes out early in the game, and you have to change the game plan mid-game. He still gets 6 targets and 4 carries, 97 total yards, but there's no touchdown and not many catches in a PPR format. That hurts you. But he still saw, again, 10 touches. Finished as a wide receiver 27 this week. So after 2 weeks, he is a wide receiver 27 overall in fantasy. My point is, the opportunities are still there. He just has not converted on those opportunities just yet.
Right.
But he will. Now, Trey Lance is out for the year. Jimmy G brings consistency. I was a huge Trey Lance believer this year. Huge. And it absolutely sucks that we really won't ever be able to know what he could have done this year. However, I did mention before the season that I was slightly worried about Deebo Samuel because I wasn't sure what his involvement would be or what this offense would look like under Trey Lance. Now Jimmy G comes in. This is the same quarterback that allowed Deebo Samuel to finish as the wide receiver 3 last year. Jimmy was leading that offense. So while I'm devastated that Trey is out, I can also recognize that this is potentially good for guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle here in this offense. Last thing I want to talk about quickly is a history of the 49ers running back.
Right.
Deebo is a very rare type of player. How many other wide receivers can you think of that get to touch the ball as much as Deebo does on a consistent basis? Most of your wide receivers are getting opportunities through the air, but they're not seeing the ball in this many different creative ways. Elijah Mitchell is on the IR. Jeff Wilson has a vast injury history. Tyrion Davis-Price is already injured again. So think about it for a moment. Deebo in the air has a chance to score on the screens, the slants, the deep balls. I mean, whatever Jimmy can offer there, right? He also can score on the ground, I formation, shotgun, goal line scenarios, end arounds. He has 25 touches in 2 games. That is 12.5 touches a game. Get Deebo now before it is too late. He will be the focal point of this offense, and that 49ers defense is good. So you're going to see Deebo on the field a lot. So, right now what I tried to do is I looked at Fantasy Pros rest of season rankings. They have a bunch of ECR rankings there, and Deebo is around these players currently. Give me Deebo over DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Michael Thomas, and Mike Evans. Now, I understand that not all those trades are going to work, but those are some starting points, So my first trade for is Deebo Samuel. I think now is the time to trade him before he pops off. Who is your first trade for?
My first trade for is Ken Walker. And this may not look sexy or sound sexy right now, but this is the perfect opportunity. He is back. He is healthy. He's coming back off that hernia. And that happened in preseason. He had a little surgery, and he's back sooner than expected. Specifically, week 2, I was thinking he might not even be back week 5 weeks. There was talks that he won't be back into the middle of the season, but he's back, and he came in and got immediately impacted Rashad Penny's touches, and it wasn't significant. To be fair, this game script was kind of blown out the water because the 49ers were up significantly really early, but with the minuscule touches that he got, he almost already outsnapped Rashad Penny, and he is the lead back here. And yes, I understand it is game script, et cetera, but I think the value they can get Ken Walker right now, the real estate agent, if you don't, then you can get him for nothing, for pennies. And week 2 right now, maybe I could put this on the screen. Rashad Penny had 20 snaps versus Ken Walker's 12. Rushing attempts, 6 rushing attempts versus Ken Walker's 4. He didn't have any targets in the air when Ken Walker had 2 targets. He caught both of those targets, obviously. And then total touches, they obviously match up 6 for 6. Rashad Penny, I know a lot of people like Rashad Penny. It's kind of the same way in my eyes like as James Conner. It's not if, it's when Rashad Penny gets injured, and it's still really early in the season. So if you can get Ken Walker now, put him on your bench. Maybe he's the guy that you can fill in, in a flex spot. Maybe there's bye weeks that are going to be coming up here very soon. I am happy to get Ken Walker. Let's not forget, Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. And I've been saying this in the all season. I will not be surprised if Ken Walker is going to be some sort of a pass catching back in this offense. A lot of people are saying, well, his MO or the way he was coming out of college wasn't necessarily a pass catching back, but I personally believe, and we can see it here already, 2 targets. I mean, it's only 2 targets. Rashad Penny didn't get any targets. Is already, getting the work in the air. Very minuscule, evidence that we have here. But I'm happy to get Rashad Penny right now. Players I'm looking for, once again, you don't have to get anything. You can pick somebody off of the waiver wires and say, you know what, maybe I'm happy to trade. Do you have a Mark Ingram? Hopefully Alvin Kamara's back. Maybe trade Ingram. Benjamin, when James Conner comes back, or Russell Gage. Maybe not this week specifically, but maybe down the road when Julio and Mike Evans comes back with suspension. AJ Green is struggling. DeAndre Hopkins is coming back in week 6. Or Robbie Anderson, a guy that was a top 15 wide receiver in week 1, struggled this past week. Maybe somebody kind of still sees the opportunity with him and Baker Mayfield. If I can get Kenneth Walker for any of these guys, I'm happy. I'm willing to do it right here, right now. So if I can get Ken Walker, put him on my flex, my bench, see what happens in the future, then that's where I'm going.
Yeah, it'll be really, really interesting what happens with Ken Walker moving forward. All right, my second trade for is AJ Dillon. There's a buy low window right now because every AJ Dillon owner just watched Aaron Jones put up 2 touchdowns and 32 fantasy points on Sunday Night Football. Okay, but the fantasy points might not have been there for AJ Dillon in week 2,
right?
But the opportunities were.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the first 2 weeks right now and the opportunities between Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Why do we look at opportunities? Because opportunities are king in fantasy football. In week 1, AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones. You saw Aaron Jones had 37 snaps versus Dillon's 31. However, Dillon had more rushing attempts, more targets, and more total touches. In week 1, AJ Dillon actually led this team in touches, receiving yards, receptions, total yards, touchdowns. I mean, he led this team in every single category. Now we're here in week 2, and you can see Aaron Jones versus AJ Dillon. The snaps were actually much closer than they were in week 1. Aaron Jones 40, AJ Dillon 39. Rushing attempts, Dillon still has the upper hand. Targets, it's still the same amount of targets. And AJ Dillon still had more touches here in week 2. So if we look at the season as a whole right now, after 2 weeks, and it's only a small sample size, but Aaron Jones is winning in snaps. AJ Dillon is winning in attempts, targets, and total touches as far as who is getting more opportunities. And look, this isn't an anti-Aaron Jones take. This is a don't be fooled A.J. Dillon is still very valuable take, okay? Aaron Jones was fantastic. He's going to
Right.
continue to have great weeks. But stop looking at this backfield as a split backfield. This is a very unique case study. This is not a split backfield. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are the offense. They are the offense, okay?
Yeah.
It's not a split backfield. They are the Packers offense. And you can see that they're both lined up on the field multiple times on multiple drives. So if you actually look at total touches, just touches in 2022, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon account for 65 total touches. The Packers wide receivers, 34. The Packers wide receivers have had 34 targets as an entire, core of wide receivers. A.J. Dillon's 7.7 point performance might have some people worried, but now is your chance to go take advantage of that. All trends, literally every trend that you need to look at for, continued fantasy success is there for A.J. Dillon. He still has a great chance to be a top 12 fantasy running back here this year. And by the way, this week 3 matchup that they're about to face versus Tampa Bay, this could be a really good argument for you, right? The person who has A.J. Dillon just saw him put up less than 8 points, and you're going to go to them and say, all right, look, I want to send you this offer, but keep in mind, they're about to face Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gives up the 4th fewest points to running backs, okay?
Right.
So either you can use that information in your favor, or you can wait to do this trade next week, because there's a chance that, A.J. Dillon doesn't have a good week this week. That's very possible. But you can also use this information to your advantage to get a trade done now, because if it's not a good week in week 3, there will be great weeks ahead for A.J. Dillon. He still should be considered a must start at the running back position. So personally, I would rather have A.J. Dillon over Cordero Patterson, James Conner, Antonio Gibson, James Robinson, Kareem Hunt, David Montgomery, Zeke, and Chase Edmonds. Give me A.J. Dillon over every single one of those players. So hopefully that's a starting point for you to go look at trading for A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones and the whole squad. Let's stay with the Green Bay Packers. My second trade for target is Allen Lazard. And it wasn't an amazing game for Allen Lazard, but the fact that he was on the field is what was good, okay? 2 receptions, only for 3 targets, 13 yards and a touchdown, 9.3 fantasy points. Once again, wasn't amazing. He was coming off of that injury, and now he's here, okay? He got a goal line touchdown. But you saw how much better this offense was when Allen Lazard was on the field. And you saw how much Aaron Rodgers struggled without Allen Lazard on the field. And I'm not saying that he changed the significance of what Aaron Rodgers can do, because he was only targeted 3 times. But the fact that his presence was there, the fact that I even saw plays on Twitter where he was blocking and people were breaking down. I was like, look how much more Allen Lazard means to this offense. And if he can get the run game going, that means he can get opportunity in the air as well later on. As you exchange, you have a massive big run play, then maybe Allen Lazard can get a massive catch. But my point that I'm trying to say is that you can get him with a good buy low opportunity right now. Okay, so if you can get, and he was my guy. He was my guy, by the way. So I still believe in Allen Lazard, and once he gets onto the field, it will improve more and more. He led the team in targets. He was only targeted 3 times. Sorry, Sammy Watkins led the team in targets with only 4 targets. He was second in targets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers did not throw the ball. Once again, this game was getting won on the ground. But if that can, not all game scripts is going to be like that, and he's going to have to target his key player, which is Allen Lazard. So I'm comfortable. I do see him averaging 7 to 8 targets per game once he is fully healthy. Now, the players that I'm willing to get for trade away for Allen Lazard, I think may be a little bit controversial for some people. I feel like a couple names. Brandon Ayuk, I would rather have right now. I would rather have Allen Lazard over Brandon Ayuk. A DK Metcalf, who's going to have massive spike weeks with Geno Smith. A Juju Smith, who Patrick Mahomes said himself, it's going to be someone different every single week. And then you can go to a Hunter Renfrow, who a lot of people still believe in, which I'm not trying to move. I'm trying to move away from him right now. So if I can get Allen Lazard for any of these guys, I am happy. Whether that's a flex, a wide receiver 2, maybe you have a 3 wide receiver league, a 2 flex league, whatever the case may be, give me Allen Lazard.
Yeah, let's see what happens with Allen Lazard here in week 3 onwards. Let's see if that opportunity rises. All right, my last trade for is BREECE. Hall.
Brother Breece.
Okay. I don't know if this can be considered a buy low candidate because he just scored his first touchdown, but I don't care. I don't care if it's not a buy low.
Right.
Now is the time to buy BREECE if you are one of those people who are worried about his round 4 ADP. I saw it all over Twitter. A lot of people were saying that was too high. And already in week 2, how long did it take for Javonte Williams to get this type of, fantasy finish? He was RB14 in week 2. To be clear, this is not a anti-Michael Carter take. This is absolutely not an anti-Michael Carter take because maybe the answer was both. Both are a great option this year. That's what it looks like so far. We don't know what it will look like with Zach Wilson, but as of right now, that seems to be the answer. And maybe this can be a go trade for Michael Carter take as well. But let's talk about Breece Hall. Firstly, the opportunities are getting closer already between these two running backs. In week 1, Michael Carter had 50 snaps, Breece 38. Rushing attempts, 10 versus 6. They tied on targets. Carter had 19 touches versus Breece's 12. In week 2, this is interesting, okay? Carter had 43 snaps versus Breece's 17. Rushing attempts, the same. Targets in favor of Michael Carter, 5-1. Total touches, 12-8. Snap count definitely seems to be, I can see how that would be concerning for some people. But there's actually a double-sided coin here, right? Breece saw a touch on 47% of his snaps. Meanwhile, Carter only got a touch on 28% of his snaps. You can read that however you want to. To me, it shows a true intention of the Jets using Breece Hall when he's on the field. Meanwhile, it seems like when Michael Carter's on the field, it's going to be relatively obvious that they might be passing the ball or they might not be looking towards him. He only gets a touch, again, 28% of his snaps. Again, I know there's a lot of people who like Michael Carter. Just chill out. This isn't an anti-Michael Carter take. What I'm telling you is that the Jets are very intentional about using Breece Hall when he's on the field. And that trust was rewarded. Breece was able to give them a touchdown, and he was extremely efficient in week 2. In week 2, 7 carries, 50 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. 7.1 yards per carry. On his one target, he got 1 touchdown. It's very hard for me to imagine this New York Jets coaching staff watching Breece Hall with their eyeballs and not saying, oh my God, let's get this guy the ball more. Okay, the eye test is hard to deny. Again, not anti-Michael Carter take, but I went back and I watched every single snap of this game, and my goodness, Breece Hall looks extremely special. Okay, I know, let's all forget if you are on the Carter or the Breece Hall train. It doesn't matter. Okay, if we all looked at that game unbiasedly and we watched Breece Hall, I think we could all sit down and we could agree, we could shake hands that the eye test is clearly passed and he looks extremely special and that the Jets would want to get this player more involved. Take the names out, watch the player, the eye test, he passed. And if you look at game script for both of these running backs, it's favorable for both of them. Whether it's Michael Carter or it's Breece Hall, both running backs could benefit here. In both games this year, the Jets have been coming back from behind. And in my opinion, it's really difficult to see that changing for this team. I mean, I feel like they're continually going to give up points and they're going to need to come back from behind. In PPR formats, both running backs will benefit. But you see the efficiency with the touches that Breece had. You see the opportunities that he had with the little amount of snaps that he played. You have to anticipate that sort of thing rising and rising. So looking at Fantasy Pros rest of season ECR, give me Breece Hall over Zeke Elliott, Antonio Gibson, Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, Darrell Henderson, Dameon Pierce. That's a good one as well. Dameon Pierce. So that's where I currently stand on it. Again, not all these deals will be able to get done, but it's a conversation starter. And I think Breece Hall is going to easily return his 4th round ADP this year.
Yeah, let's see if it works out. Brother Breece doing his thing. My last trade for target is give me the GOAT. Give me TB12. It hasn't been looking good so far. Been struggling on the field. Last 2 games, he scored less than 15 points, which has been very disappointing, especially if you're in a Superflex league. And maybe this is specifically if you are in a Superflex league or maybe a one. Yeah.
Me. I own him in a Superflex league, and I'm angry at him.
Yeah, or a 1 quarterback league, whatever the case may be. And the one thing I just want to go straight to is I know Carson Wentz has been doing his thing. This is not towards you, Zach, but towards the community. This is Carson Wentz. He's been doing his thing, top 3 quarterback the last for the past 2 weeks. But I think everyone could all agree and say we would still all rather have Tom Brady. We would still be comfortable with Tom Brady moving forward just based off of what we know and how and what he can do when he is producing at his highest level. Okay.
Why is not that you're the only one, but why does everyone always put Carson Wentz under the bus?
Well,
Like,
it's not even
why
under
can't
the
we
bus.
put respect on his name?
It's not even under the bus. It was just more
heck?
like this is the perfect example. Carson Wentz has finished top 3 2 weeks in a row, which has been great.
Sure.
It's been fantastic. But I think
Yeah.
that was just the quick
Look,
my quick
I
analysis.
agree. I just feel like everyone like in mainstream media, just everyone, like no one can give Carson respect for his first 2 weeks. It's fair. I agree with what you're saying.
I mean,
I agree with what you're saying.
It's just doing his thing. But once again, let's also remember that the past 2 weeks, this team has been struggling with injury. Julio, Godwin, Mike Evans, even Lenny has been struggling coming into the season. And now, I mean, this could be a 2-week window for you guys, for a Tom Brady owner, right? Because Mike Evans officially suspended. Julio Jones might be in question for week 3 again already, and then you have Chris Godwin, who we don't know when he's going to return. They say in 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. He's going to be throwing the ball to Russell Gage, Scotty Miller, everyone there, and he's going to be struggling. So maybe you do have a 2-week window right now and maybe the week after. But once everyone's on the team, on the field, Julio, Godwin, Mike Evans, this team is nasty. So I'm looking to trade for TB12 right now with confidence, once again, in a Superflex league, just purely based off the history of Tom Brady. Okay, players that I'm willing to trade away to get Tom Brady, and maybe you can get more right now, just based off how these guys are performing for Tom Brady. Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, a Derek Carr, a Trevor Lawrence. These are all guys I would rather have, or I would trade away for Tom Brady right now. And maybe you disagree. Maybe.
Well, let's test that a little bit more, because I personally, and look, I could be wrong. I don't think anyone's trading those guys. I don't think anyone wants those guys over Brady. So let's put it a little bit closer to the test, looking at Fantasy Pros ECR.
Okay.
Would you rather have Tom Brady or Joe Burrow rest of season? Just kind of seeing where your gauge is for people who are making trades.
I would still rather have Tom Brady, but I don't know if anyone's going to be trading Joe Burrow. I think people are happy to trade some. This is why I did some of these guys. I get where you were going, but we can continue.
Okay.
We can continue.
Well, I have Brady in a league, and there's no way I'm trading him away for these guys. So I'm trying to give people more realistic ones. How about Russell Wilson? He's struggling. You want Russell Wilson or Tom Brady rest of season?
I think that's a toss-up. I'm happy with either one.
Okay.
To be completely honest.
How about Derek Carr then? I'll be the last one I ask.
Yeah,
Matthew Stafford.
I would rather have Tom Brady over Derek Carr.
Cool.
And like I said, it was just more based off of I know some of these higher tier guys are struggling, but the lower tier guys, maybe in a 1 quarterback league, you probably got off of waiver wires. Maybe you're in a 2 quarterback league and you have, let's say, Matthew Stafford and a Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, someone's like, well, I got a Monron. Maybe I want to pair that up with Jared Goff. I'm happy to sell Goff and get Tom Brady. So that's the thought process.
No, I could be wrong. I just know that I don't imagine, I guess, people would want to
I'm there with you.
Players over Brady. Man, Carson Wentz, man. He just catches strays no matter what. I'm like why can't we give my man his flowers right now in week 2?
I'm giving him the flowers. He got the flowers. I don't know if he get the flowers for the rest of the season. He got the flowers in 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup versus the Eagles for sure this week. All right, this part of the video is not so easy. And please be aware that we are not telling you have to trade these players away. Right. What we are telling you is that if you can get the players we are advising, we would rather have them than the players we're telling you to trade away. Okay, so I'm going to tell you to trade away Nick Chubb. Nick's got a big old chub, and I'm going to tell you to trade him away. At the time that we're recording this video, Nick Chubb is the running back 1 on the year. He is the running back 1 this year, as of right now. Okay. Right. Firstly, I personally really struggle to see this being sustainable in PPR formats. Nick Chubb has scored 3 touchdowns 1 other time in his entire career. Okay. This is not a common occurrence for Nick Chubb. This is a huge chance, in my opinion, to sell high. He typically, for me, finds himself in the truly elite NFL running back category, but always kind of disappointing me in fantasy category. And while it looks good in week 2, again, that's why I showed you all these players who were underperforming week 2 last year. It doesn't always stay that way. Things change. Week 2 is such a it's so pointless to look at week 2 and say this is what it is so far, because that's about 10% of the season. Okay? Let's talk about last year. He was absolutely dominant. Like if you're just talking NFL, not talking fantasy football, Nick Chubb was the second best running back in the entire NFL. Okay? He was second in rushing yards, 8th in attempts, 10th in rushing touchdowns. If you take the top 40 running backs in fantasy football, the only person with a higher yards per carry was Jonathan Taylor. Nick Chubb had an elite NFL running back season. Yet, he didn't even finish inside the top 12. He was RB 13. We're talking about an elite NFL season, and the guy didn't even finish top 12. In points per game, he was 12th. He finished RB 13. Kareem Hunt missed 9 games, and still Chubb didn't see any work in the air. So I'm talking about a PPR format. The last 2 years, Nick Chubb has failed to average any more than 1.7 targets per game. He hasn't averaged any more than 1.7 targets per game. And how many weeks will it be Hunt's week? I mean, that's a hard to say that like 4 times fast. But how many weeks will it be Kareem Hunt, right?
Right.
In week 1 this year, it was Kareem Hunt. If you were a Nick Chubb owner, you were incredibly frustrated that, Kareem Hunt almost stole the show. Last year, weeks 1 to 6, Nick Chubb was a running back 15. Kareem Hunt was a running back 9. It's important that you note, though, you do not have to sell Chubb. If you feel comfortable with him, keep him. What I am telling you is that there are other running backs that I currently feel better about moving forward. Okay? Give me the following running backs over Nick Chubb. Again, who is the RB1 right now on the season.
Right.
A lot of people worried about Austin Eckler when they were watching that Thursday night football game. Give me Austin Eckler over him. Give me Swift over him with the injury. Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley. I don't think anyone does that Saquon Barkley one, but again, some people are looking at the season from a perspective of 2 weeks. So those are a couple players that I would look at going out and trading Nick Chubb away for.
Right.
A lot of people might ask me about, like, let's say a Derrick Henry. I don't want Derrick Henry. So he might be someone, again, that I could have had to this list. But looking at that offense, the offensive line does not look good. I'll take an Aaron Jones over a Nick Chubb. I don't know if I said that. I'll take a Lenny Fournette over a Nick Chubb. So, again, 2 weeks. Don't look at it from just that lens. You do not have to sell Chubb, but I would if I could get some of those other players.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, yeah, Nick Chubb, let's see what he does. RB1. Who would have thought? My first and final guy for this video in the trade away section is Tyler Lockett. And honestly, this is just perfect opportunity. What he did this past week and what we said coming into the season with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, that there was going to be spike weeks, right? He caught 9 out of 11 targets for 107 yards, had over 19 fantasy points. This is not consistent. So if you can sell him high with this opportunity right now, I'm really happy to do that. And, Geno Smith had a great week 1. Tyler Lockett didn't have a great week 1. Geno Smith, decent week 2. Tyler Lockett had a great week 2. So, and this is what I don't want. I don't want some inconsistency stuff. So it's really plain and simple. Trade Tyler Lockett for the following players right now. And I think maybe some people won't do this, but maybe people are panicking or are struggling in some certain scenarios. A Mike Evans, he just got suspended. Can you get a Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett? Maybe you throw in somebody else, Deontay Johnson, a Hollywood, a Terry, a Drake London. There's so many players I would go here. I mean, I would even go with maybe somebody that's like, for example, Jerry Jeudy. He's injured right now. Maybe he's out for a game, but still, if you have the depth, maybe you're 2-0 right now, and you need a guy for the long term. I'm happy to do that. Maybe I doubt you can do it with like someone like a Michael Pittman, but can you package Tyler Lockett and then get some of these guys? I doubt you can get a bigger name like that, but I'm wanting to move away. I'm just wanting to move away from inconsistency. I want consistent guys that are going to be lined up in my roster week in and week out. Once again, these are players that I am trying to get. If I have Tyler Lockett on my team, I want to get Mike Evans, Deontay, Hollywood, Terry, Drake London. I'm trying to trade away Tyler Lockett right now.
Yeah, well, why don't you guys let us know what your tradeaways are this week? Comment down below if there's any trades that you have made. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Yo, what's good? Thanks
Wow.
for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch
Now,
it.
You can also subscribe
Right now.
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.